I am Consciously Curious, a podcast for those that are searching for a career or cultivating meaning within their own space. We've had anesthesia providers to barbers, dog behaviors to airline pilots, white collar to blue collar, entrepreneurs to passion projects. Life's too short to not produce meaningful work. Join me, Victor Chan, as we deep dive within various industries. I'd love to hear your feedback, so feel free to leave a comment. I hope you find some value within these conversations, but more importantly, I hope it sparks a meaning within your own space. Our next guest shares his experience within Notre Dame Football, politics, and generating sales for a beverage distribution company. He's now known for his work as a producer and host of the Emmy-winning show, the CEO Series. He's talked with CEOs of companies like Portillo's, Dude Wipes, Malnati's, and the Chicago Blackhawks, Bulls, and White Sox, just to name a few. He and his brother founded a strategic consulting agency called Salvi Media, where they assist executives on how to better communicate with their team and improve employee engagement. We ruminate on some of the things that we strive for in order to become a good show host. Please enjoy my conversation with Will Salvi. We are supported by Remember, that's RMBR, a Chicago kombucha that's changing the social beverage game. I absolutely love their tagline, Real Memories, Better Rituals. Guys, I am currently in my booch era, and I noticed that as I was winding down the other night, I was reaching for a can of Remember instead of a beer. Out of all the non-alcoholic beverages to choose from, Remember is my go-to whether I'm working or out in a social setting. It stays true to its roots as an unpasteurized, raw, and organic kombucha without any added sugars, juices, or additives. The vibrant and unique colors of each flavor mirror the rich diversity within each can. You can find them in various bodegas and stores around the city, as well as on their website, drinkremember.com. That's DRINKRMBR.com. Cheers. Will Salvi of Salvi Media.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's so much more to you than just the media company.
Yeah.
How's it going? Welcome to the show.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
I'm excited to chop it up with you. You're probably the second or third kind of like interview host that I've had on. So it's always fun to try to get a peek behind the curtains and inside your head of like how you run your show and things like that. And I feel like it's underrated and underappreciated. The specific series, the CEO series, it's so well polished. You allow the experts in their respective fields to do what they do, whether it's edit or videography, and that allows you to do what you do best, which is produce and host. And more specifically in Chicago, people need to see this stuff. And I see a lot of like parallels as well as differences in our shows, and we reach different people. And I think I aspire to be that polished. But that being said, I've had people that have like large companies that they work for, and there's a lot of red tape sometimes. There's a lot of filters, a lot of back and forth before Final Cut gets released. And part of me, that irks me for some reason. Part of me just like, I enjoy the candid conversations. And when someone feels like they have to appease a board or people that hold stock, and they got to hold their tongue in certain aspects. Like I respect it for sure, but I don't know. I think I really want people to get an insight into maybe the day-to-day of how someone and why someone does what they do. And when they have to hold their tongue, that kind of diminishes that value. So without rambling on too long, like...
No, I agree.
How has your 2024 been? How long has the company been? Is it 6 years now? Almost 7 years?
Yeah, almost 7 years. 7 years in May. Started out as a video production company specifically.
Right.
So that's where we started to learn our trade, so to speak. Not me specifically, but working with freelancers and talented individuals, talented creatives. And then we pivoted to more of an agency model where we hire producers and
and to distinguish, it's not, to this day, it's not a production company. It's more so like a content strategy, as well as like you do produce video, but like you rent all the gear.
All of it.
That's
All of it.
awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have the budget for that, like go for it.
Yeah, all of it. Because, obviously technology changes quite a bit. So we don't want to bring too much gear in-house and then have to change it every 2 years, every 3 years.
Right.
And then on top of that, different projects require different creative minds on it. So we'd rather work with trusted contractors, trusted freelancers that we have worked with for a few years. And so we utilize their different skill sets for different projects.
Right.
Right. I'm not sure how many like directors or creatives would want to be at like a corporate setting too. I always feel like that's kind of conflicting with what a creative is. Like I just met someone who was working for themselves and then they moved on to like a big corporate job. And it's not like a corporate agency. It's a bank. And now, and you're a director at a bank. And I thought to myself, that can't like necessarily get the creative juices flowing. I'm not criticizing the person.
Yeah.
There's a lot of reasons why people make decisions, but just my thought.
Yeah, like I unfortunately made I came from a perspective of you needed to be entrepreneurial in order to be deemed creative. And that was like, I couldn't have been more wrong. And this conversation happened with my now wife. And right before I proposed to her, she thought I was going to break up with her because we had this conversation of, I get to meet very, at the time, creative, but my wife's very creative entrepreneurial individuals on this podcast. And part of me felt like I wanted to have a life partner that was just as entrepreneurial. That being said, I think Justine is very creative in her own regard, and it doesn't have to be entrepreneurial. And to actually have two entrepreneurial individuals under the same household, like I get to do what I do because she holds it down in other aspects at home, whether it's with the dogs or whatever it is.
How many dogs do you have?
We have two.
I got two.
7 and 6.
That's like the same ages
Wow.
as mine. Yeah, 7 and 5. Yeah.
And I don't know. It's like you don't have to be a partner with someone to fulfill that checkbox of like working with people that are as entrepreneurial. So that was kind of a tangent, but
I'm here for it.
Yeah. So that's where we were at, and that being said, we're happily married. We're maybe 6-7 months in.
How's it going?
It's good. It's good. Like logistically, not much has changed. We lived together prior to getting married.
How long together prior to getting married?
Almost 4 years now.
Okay, so you were already married at that point. Yeah.
I'm starting to meet a lot of people that met in the pandemic, and which is what happened with us as well. And so I think when you find your bubble partner and you do like the day-to-day, whether it's grocery shopping, eating together, cooking together, cleaning together, sleeping together, like it expedites the experience, and you really get to know if this is someone you want to spend potentially the rest of your life with.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely. What a story too for future is we met during the pandemic.
Yeah.
It's going to be a thing.
I'm starting to meet people that don't remember what the pandemic was like. Isn't that crazy?
It is crazy. It's a wild time. I think a lot of people blocked it out, to be honest. I was just thinking about it with my wife the other day. It's a wild time, especially like in areas that, like we live in Chicago, so cities that shut things down and were more cautious than other cities. Yeah, it was an experience.
So outside of the, like, I guess if we were to rewind the clock a little bit, before you have the great honor and privilege of meeting and conversing with high-profile CEOs, what were some of your early thoughts of what you might be doing? Because I go to career fairs, I speak with high schoolers, middle schoolers, and I reflect on my own journey. I did not think about what I was going to do back in high school. I kind of just listened to my parents, and they kind of pushed me towards healthcare, and I kind of fell ass backwards into it. And now I'm a teacher, right? So at what point did you start putting some intention behind what you could be doing or might be doing?
Good question. I did not think about going into marketing or media or anything. I studied political science in college. I did do theater for a little bit. I was a double major, and then, not trying to put a plug in this right away, but I walked on to the Notre Dame football team.
Yeah.
And once that happened, I had to drop classes. And so I dropped the theater major.
I see.
And I only did the acting classes. It's not like I was doing production design and everything. I really enjoyed the acting classes, and that's why I added it as a major.
Okay.
So I went to work on Capitol Hill for a senator in D.C. for about 18 months. Was my first job out of college.
Rewind, because what was it before Notre Dame?
How do you mean? Just high school, baby.
So, okay. So was it your brother that didn't start at Notre Dame?
I did. So actually, no. I went to Alabama my freshman year.
I see. Okay.
I transferred.
Yeah.
I'm not much of a South guy. Take
so
that how you want.
How did you land in Alabama then?
So I wanted to do something different. I'm one of 5 boys. I'm the youngest of 5 boys. It's a great school. Alabama's a great school. It's a great campus. If someone came to me and said, "Should I go to Alabama?" I would say to them, "It's a great school.
Yeah,
great academic program there too. The sports are fun.
Yeah."
So that's what I was looking for. And it was a culture shock, all my family's in Chicago land area. I missed home. I was doing well in school. I would never have gotten into Notre Dame outside of high school. So I did well at Alabama, and then I transferred in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so was that the plan when you got into Alabama, or you got shocked at Alabama? You're like, I want to go back to the Midwest.
It was a little bit of that.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think if I was going back in time, I would tell myself like, hey, have a little bit more of an open mind.
Sure.
Enjoy the experience a little bit. I'm glad the way everything worked out, and Notre Dame was my dream school. I'm so glad that I got that experience.
Did your parents go to Notre Dame?
My dad went to law school there, and then my mom went to St. Mary's, which is the sister college right near.
I feel like it's such a legacy school.
It is a legacy school.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so actually, speaking of which, my brothers, so I was there for 3 years. Freshman year, I was at Alabama, and then I transferred.
Gotcha.
My brother Brian was at law school there.
Wow.
And then my brother Chris also transferred in, played football there. And so I had 2 of my brothers there for 3 years with me. It was awesome.
Did you try for football at Alabama as well?
Does it look like it?
Well, you got on at Notre Dame, so it's just like
no. I didn't even think about it.
Okay,
I was kind of smaller in high school. I got a little bigger in college.
I see.
Notre Dame also has an intramural football league that is full pads tackle.
Oh,
they
wow.
don't have it anymore. They just stopped
Okay.
it because the kids were getting hurt and they didn't have enough attendance in the league. But I did really well in that league.
Mm-hmm.
And it's cool. Like you do practice twice a week and then you play on Sunday.
Do you ever cross paths with the actual players then?
So they'd always go to games, and a lot of times players would walk on after, quote unquote, doing well in that league. It would be kind of like a in between. Because,
Okay.
tackle football is not something where you like take 5 years off and then go back into it.
Right,
It's
right.
kind of a weird, I'm not going to say it's so hardcore, but, it takes a little bit mentally to be prepared to like get hit and hit someone.
Yeah.
So,
A couple episodes prior to this one, we had an episode about concussions.
yeah,
With a former pro wrestler.
I got a dent in my head right here.
Oh my God.
But I'm okay.
Right?
Where are you?
Right? It's just like, can you even put a number to how many times you've been hit?
No.
Right?
No.
Isn't that interesting?
No.
Thankfully, it could be the symptoms, they still have them from light sensitivity.
Yeah.
Sometimes nausea from certain activities.
Yeah, it's really sad. I know there's a few teammates on the Notre Dame team that have, are no longer here because of some issues
shoot.
that they've had and
Yeah.
that they had.
On the extreme side, behavior modification.
yeah, it's a sad nature of the game. It's a violent sport, but the reality too, though, is that the sport's getting safer.
Yeah.
I mean, truly, like the sport is getting rapidly safer, and it's a violent sport. I mean,
Sure.
there's 250-pound explosive
Oh my
men
God.
running at each other. Like it's gonna cause injuries.
Specifically in your role, I'm not a sports guy. So specifically in your role as cornerback, what is your purpose?
Guard the wide receiver, primary purpose.
So got to be fast.
Gotta be
fast.
yeah.
Got to be.
So
cover 'em.
I will say I didn't get like the corner position doesn't necessarly get in the mix of big hits.
Okay.
A lot.
Okay. Yeah. I just wanted to wrap my head around
Yeah.
that.
On top of that, I didn't play. So on top of that, I wasn't in a game at Notre Dame. So
Wait,
I was
what?
just a walk on. Yeah. So I was.
What does that mean, walk on?
I dressed for games.
Okay.
And a walk ons you try out for the team.
Sure.
Versus scholarship players, they get asked to be on the team, and then they obviously get they get school paid for. And,
Okay.
Yeah. So I was a walk on. You try out.
Sure.
And then
Still not easy to get on though, right?
no, super hard. Yeah. Yeah.
So
At least I tell myself that.
But your brother got on as well?
So my brother Chris was a great football player. So he was a walk-on too, but it was kind of a preferred walk-on situation. He transferred from Butler University, which is a Division I AA.
Wow.
He did well there, transferred to Notre Dame. He got a scholarship as a walk-on, and if you do well and you play, then the coach will award you with a scholarship. He had to try out with the Bears at the rookie minicamp. He was a great player.
In order to get on Notre Dame? Like try out with the Bears?
The tryouts with the Bears was after he graduated from Notre Dame.
Oh, my God.
Yeah,
wow.
Yeah. He was a great player.
So I guess with that, like, what was your mentality or headspace like with seeking just an opportunity? It's like a mix of like how hungry are you versus like is it like a who you know type situation?
No, I don't think it's. I mean, It's not a who. It obviously helps to have your my brother was on the team.
Oh, okay.
Prior to me walking on, so he said, "Here's who you contact to get the tryout."
Sure.
That said, you got to try out, and then like there's 8 other guys. 5 got cut, so I wasn't one of those guys that got cut. And then I mean, I just wanted to do it because physically I felt like I could. The inter-hall football that I described, like with the tackle football, I did that for 2 years. And this is not a brag at all. It's really dorky, actually. But we won the championship both years. I was like the captain of that team.
Okay.
You get to play in Notre Dame Stadium at the end. Or we won
were you cornerback for that league as well?
I was also on offense, too. So I did both.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So did really well in that. And I just thought like, football's great. I miss football. Like I'm going to do it more intensely.
Yeah.
My brother Chris walked on, like I'm going to try.
Yeah.
And I hung out with a lot of football players too because of Chris. And I just want to be a part of it.
Yeah.
What's cooler than that? I'm like the biggest fan. I mean, look at me. I'm wearing the shirt. Like growing up, I loved Notre Dame football.
Okay.
Looked up to the players. It was just a cool, we ran out of the tunnel. It was the coolest experience, truly. Like, and I was on the team for one full calendar year, January to January.
Sure.
And during that year, we went undefeated and we went to the national championship and we played, guess who? Alabama.
Right? I saw
we got
that.
our ass kicked. But my point behind this is that we went undefeated. And so it was a really fun year. Like it was, every game we won, obviously, but then a lot of those games were a lot of fun. I went to Ireland and dressed for a game in Ireland. I played at Soldier Field.
Oh, wow.
And went to Miami.
Who'd you play in Ireland?
Navy.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Super cool. Yeah.
Did you have high expectations to walk on when you were trying out?
You mean
like were you?
I expected to make the team.
What type of mentality headspace were you in?
I didn't want to be a fall behind guy where, say, we were doing sprints or working out. I didn't want to be a walk on where it's like, look at this guy. He's not carrying his weight, or he's not as fast as us. I was surprised that I just used that as like a motivation when I was training for it. I was training for it pretty intensely for about like 6 months prior to walking on. Mm-hmm. And when I say training for it, I mean like I stopped drinking during school, like a school semester. So like I'd be at parties and people would be drinking. I wouldn't be drinking.
Wow.
Working out much more intensely than I normally would. And training specifically for football on top of that while playing tackle football in that league that I had mentioned. Yeah. So. Yeah.
I'm just like, what if you were in the headspace to, I remember Kobe saying something similar.
I'm exactly like Kobe.
Right. Right. Along the lines of like just giving it your all and not seeking a win. So like not being like destination focused and more so like doing the best you can.
There was no destination for me other than just being on the team.
Oh, nice.
So in that sense, yeah, I agree with that. I just wanted to be on the team. I wanted to contribute, and I wanted to not be a walk-on that people looked at and were like, oh,
talking shit like behind your back.
Yeah, which also, by the way, I will say, in my limited experience, like I never saw anyone do that to any walk-on because all of the guys on the team worked really hard and they cared and they contributed in their own way. You need plenty of walk-ons. Some of the scholarship guys were terrible as well. So
if someone was injured, that's what a walk-on's role would be, just like to fill those roles.
No, not necessarily. I mean, plenty of walk-ons played in the games.
Oh,
it's
like a reserve type role.
No, not even that. I would say like it's like you have a certain amount of scholarships every year. Each team does. but you need more players. And so they recruit or they get walk-ons to come in and be those players. And walk-ons, I mean, Chris was a game day captain while he was a walk-on.
Oh, wow.
So it's not like walk-ons can be significant
so
contributors.
You just have to be ready for that moment.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah.
And that happens in the NFL as well?
No walk-ons in the NFL. They're just free. They're just either they're signed to a team and now they're just on the team. Yeah.
Okay.
But there are walk-ons that make it to the NFL and they are successful in the NFL.
That's interesting.
And those are always like pretty good stories. Like Baker Mayfield was a walk-on. It's probably a very famous one right now.
So it's just like, it's so interesting. It's just like, it's kind of a metaphor for life in the sense of like you have to stay ready for that opportunity. Yeah. And it's frustrating if you don't know when that opportunity is, especially when you see kind of like life playing out in front of you. Yeah.
It was a great experience. It was very intense. There's 80,000 fans and you're running out there. And like I said, I'm not playing. So there wasn't any pressure on game day for me personally, but being up against practice where I literally was like getting hit by Manti Te'o, if you remember the name. He just had the Netflix documentary about the fake girlfriend. But Manti was our teammate and super nice guy, but he was like a Heisman Trophy finalist behind Johnny Manziel. And, I'd be getting hit by him in practice.
Oh, my God.
And he's, 70 pounds bigger than me, stronger, more explosive. And so in that sense, like you need to be ready for that mentally.
Oh, my God.
And it's a lot of fun. It was great. I loved it. I mean, I loved every part of it. It was so much fun. Yeah.
So is practice another opportunity to show the coaches of like what you have?
That's like the only opportunity for walk-ons too. And until they give you that moment to play. Which they do to certain walk-ons who are higher performing.
Wow.
But yeah, practice is your moment to shine.
Wow. Is it a daily thing or a weekly or every other day? Like how often is practice?
Every single day, like
every single day.
It was at like 5 a.m. too. Like
wow.
It was, and it was like for multiple meetings prior and meetings afterwards.
Would you have any conversations with the coaches?
All the time. Oh. Yeah, all the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So like, what was the feedback? Like, I can't imagine like just suiting up every day, just watching. I don't know. Just like to me, it's like I want to be in there.
Yeah, of course.
Like, but any advice from them for you?
It's so much bigger than. It's so much bigger than
playing.
For me specifically,
Yeah.
like I was happy to get the opportunity,
right.
and I didn't want to squander
It's a good
that opportunity.
Good place to be in. I guess leads to the next question.
I haven't talked about this at length in a little bit.
That's the whole point of podcasts, right? I guess like what, and you might carry this through into like your work right now, but like what breeds effective like culture, whether that's within a football team or a corporation, and it gets trickier the bigger you are, but it can still be tricky to navigate even in a lean team too. But I hear nothing but good things about like how prideful people are from Notre Dame. What do you think led to that? Like just right now, like you just like, I'm so grateful to be here. Like I'm on the team like that.
Yeah.
That the perspective to remove yourself and be part of a collective.
We like to say it internally ourselves, me and my brother and the rest of our team, pursuing excellence. Mm-hmm. You just mentioned not pursuing a destination. Mm-hmm. So if you pursue excellence, there is not really a destination. You're always looking to improve on things. It's not comfortable to pursue, like, I don't want to sound like a dork on a podcast where I'm like an entrepreneur bro. That's like the opposite of what I want to sound like. But in order to, if someone said to me like, I want to be great at this, at blank, that's not like a comfortable road. Like what person in the universe has done great things? Define great. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. What person has done great things where they haven't had like a comfortable journey along the way?
Right.
Where they've struggled, they've looked internally and said, how can I improve? They've challenged their team. They've said, this is good, but we can do this even better.
Right.
I mean, and that's not comfortable all the time. And I would say like, that's the biggest takeaway that I had with going to school there and just being around those people and what we still carry to this day. And our team specifically carries to this day. And that includes all the freelancers and contractors that we have. I mean, we talk about it all the time with them. Like, that's what I want to be around. Right, I don't want to be around people who are like, this is good enough. That's not that's not really like who I am.
Right.
And I do, like, if you and I were working together on a photography project, I wouldn't want to hold back to you either if I thought, say, some of your work was not as good as I thought it could be.
Sure.
And I would tell you, and I'd want you to tell me if I was doing something that would help you get better, or something that I'm not doing right that's not making everything as good as it can be. So I would just say the pursuit of excellence is an important mindset.
I wonder if like they've been doing this long enough to where they attract someone who practices the growth mindset. Or if I wonder if you've noticed anyone that came in with a shitty mindset and the culture within the group has molded them into what they needed to be.
Yeah. I mean, and it's gone the opposite way too, where someone with a shitty mindset comes in and they actually cause issues with other people because their mindset sucks.
Sure.
So like I said, I don't think it's like a comfortable thing to have. And I'm not standing here saying like, look at me, I'm pursuing excellence every day. But it's more so just, do you want to reflect back on, say, your passions or your work or what you've done and say that was good enough? Or do you want to say, yeah, I gave it my all, or I really cared about it and I really tried to improve, and I did, and I kept improving. And then you start looking back and you realize, wow, look how far I've come.
Right.
What's better than that? Right. And I want to be surrounded by people like that. I don't want to be surrounded by people who, work a corporate video job and they think it's bullshit. Why would I? No, try to make it the best corporate video you can. I know it's hard. It's hard. I get it.
Wasn't that the whole point of like going out on our own and like
that's the whole point,
creating this lifestyle where we're free to choose the projects and the people that we work with, and only to end up in the same place of like, I'm doing this work that I despise. And
I want to work on a Super Bowl ad too, but you don't get there by saying I want to work on a Super Bowl ad. You get there by like having a pursuit of excellence in your work. So I don't really, like I said, that's the culture that we try to put forth in anything that we do. And just got to keep moving forward. That's important. Yeah. Forward moving is important. Yeah.
And so you finished with your poli-sci?
I did, and I worked for a senator in D.C., a blue dog Democrat in Indiana.
Oh wow!
And that is not a
wait. What? Indiana? Isn't that a red? Is that a red state or is it a blue state?
Super red state?
I was like,
he's a great guy. He's actually the ambassador of the papacy, the Pope right now. So the Vatican.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
I was about to say the ambassador of the Holy See is the correct title.
So wait, with poli-sci, politics was like kind of in the forefront
Not
of your
really.
mind?
My dad's a lawyer.
What kind of attorney? What kind of law?
Injury.
Okay.
Yeah, personal injury, medical malpractice. He's a great lawyer, and my brother is a lawyer. Two of my brothers are lawyers. One of my brother's wives is a attorney at the firm.
Oh wow!
So that said, they're a great firm and they're great lawyers. My dad has had a very great career in law, and I've got to witness it in person, like him literally in court doing a closing argument as an example. And then obviously I've seen him over time running his business, running his firm. And I think that's part of our psyche is like that dude pursues excellence. And now my brothers do. So I think it's just kind of part of what we want to do and what we've seen. And I really respect what they do because, they're not the type of lawyers that you see on the billboards. Like those guys, there's some
Lerner and Rowe.
Lerner. We all know them. In a wreck, get a check. Yeah. Like that's not them. They deal with pretty catastrophic situations. And I've met their clients before. I've obviously been seeing them through time. There's a lot like Drop the Hammer.
Francis Geraci or something like that.
That's Peter Francis Tracy.
Peter Francis Tracy.
He's a bankruptcy attorney. Yeah. I've been inundated with a lot of law.
So
my point is I didn't know what I wanted to do, so I chose poli-sci. Yeah.
Okay.
That's why I chose that. Yeah. Oh, my dad does that. I'm going to do that, but I'm not like
Is that
passionate
what he studied though? Poli-sci?
I don't know what he studied.
You could probably study. Could you study anything and just kind of take the LSATs?
Yeah, you could.
Oh, that's okay.
Maybe it would help you in the sense of like, poli-sci, you have to write a lot of papers and form arguments, but
what was like the home life balance / like discussion? Like, would you overhear or would he talk about some of the work or some of the clients that you said you've met some clients, but like, so you get like some inside look into like his day to day?
Yeah, all the time. And it would be in a great sense too, because he would deal with pretty horrific situations. One of the biggest ones that he's had is a girl that was like around our age, this was in 2018, like she was 26, 27, and she was a dancer. She was at O'Hare, and it was a very windy, rainy day. And in O'Hare, when you're waiting for taxis, the little shelter that you can stand under, it broke off and severed her spine, and she was paralyzed from like the waist down, had horrible phantom pain in her legs. So she has no movement or ability to move her legs, but she feels them, and they feel like they're going to explode.
Sure.
So just like situations like that where you're just a bystander and you're just something like that happens, it's given me great perspective on things, because I grew up in a situation where life was good as a kid, and I'm not very grateful for that too. And
in an ideal world, that's how it should be, right?
Yeah.
For as a kid, like that's what life should be.
Of course.
Like as a kid.
Yeah. So in that sense,
like
he talked about that a lot.
Did that pique any curiosity into healthcare at all?
No, but he's always had a great passion for healthcare, because they have to. They need to know a lot about.
I currently have an attorney in the EMT class.
Oh, really? Yeah. Very nice.
Yeah.
Well, they need to be very knowledgeable about all these things, because they're dealing so much with pretty specific medical issues.
Sure.
So they need to know what they're talking about. So.
When you saw your dad do the closing argument and litigate, is there any aspect of that really stood out to you? And I've said this before on previous episodes, but as much as we want to be seen by our parents, it's very fulfilling for our parents to be seen by us as well. And so any part of that closing argument stand out that either I'm proud of him or makes me want to do that line of work? Any part of that closing argument?
So yes, he's a very hard worker.
Yeah.
And he, when you're on trial, it's a pretty rigorous time period when you're on trial, like the preparation and then the actual time on trial.
Yeah.
So
and
I had
you
witnessed.
were very aware of how much prep went into.
Yeah.
Right. It's it all led up to the closing argument.
Yes.
But to see it all come together.
Yeah, and then the closing argument, it's the final performance.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, to relate it back to sports, it's kind of like the game,
Yeah.
but you forget about all the practices. So
Right,
don't forget,
right.
Tom Brady or Patrick Mahomes are great. It's
when someone says
work their
overnight
asses off.
millionaire, right?
Exactly. So it's give people a little more credit when they have success.
And how old were you at that time? Because, some kids don't pay attention to how much hustle their parents are going through.
Well, I remember as far as back as I can remember him working, waking up super early. I remember when I would wake up sick sometimes, I would say, well, my dad will be up soon, at 4 a.m. or something, and he'd be, ready to rock.
But it's an interesting mentality, because some kids might ask, how come dad doesn't hang out with us? How come dad doesn't play with me? And I don't know. It's an interesting.
Yeah. He was still very present. It was more so just it was, he was a great example in the sense of, when you choose a profession, do something you really care about, do something that you're passionate about, do something that you're good at, and go pursue it as well as you can. And in order to do that, that was drilled into our heads at a very early age, rightly or wrongly. But choose something you care about.
Yeah.
Choose something that you're passionate about and work hard.
A lot of truth in that. And when it came time at graduation, when you had to make that decision, who were some people that you looked up to for advice? It could be your parents, but if you had anyone else in your life that you wouldn't have mind some advice to help point you in a certain direction.
My brothers.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, very cool.
Super close with my brothers.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So I got 4 older brothers.
And you said 2 or 3 of them are attorneys, or 2 of them are
Two
attorneys?
of them are attorneys. Chris runs the business with me. He's the one right above me. And then our second oldest, David, is a creative director.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And he's been in agency world. He has his own company now.
So when you did graduate, how immediate was that decision to start working for, you said, the senator?
It was a week after I graduated. I moved right to Capitol Hill. I drove there. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wait, why? But what was the thought? What was the lead up to that? How did it happen so fast?
Just applied and did an interview and they said, all right, you're going to start in May. I was like, great. Yeah. I was super excited because at that point I was like juiced up to be in politics, but I didn't know if I liked it or not. I ended up not liking it. I like discussing political issues with people.
Did you ever volunteer on a campaign prior to that?
No, I didn't.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
What was that interview like to get the job? Was there an interview?
There was multiple interviews. It was a typical interview.
Really?
I mean, it was an entry level. It was an entry level job at the
That's
senator's office. So it wasn't as rigorous as like a legislative aide or something. But
so, I mean, in that role, did you see potential upside? Like, did you see a potential ladder to climb, or did you?
No. Pretty quickly, I was like, this is not for me. I'm like so there's one thing that I loved about the role.
Okay.
If I can go on a tangent
Please.
here. There was one guy in our office that senators have body men. It's kind of like the person that hangs out with them, goes to their meetings, helps them out.
But not really assistants?
They have an assistant. It's separate than an assistant. It's kind of like it's
I've
like
noticed that.
It's similar.
Yeah.
It's very similar.
What do they do then besides just stand there?
Yeah, honestly,
are they like
I don't
secret security guards?
I'm sure, like if someone if a body man
come on the show.
If they're watching this, they'd be like, we do much more than that. So I don't want to like define it too much, but unfortunately, the body man for our senator, he got stabbed like 8 times. He's okay. He's okay, but he got stabbed, so he was out for a few months. They put me there.
Oh my God.
And I loved it.
Oh, okay.
Because I was just hanging out with a United States senator.
Okay.
And in that hangout, quote unquote, I say hanging out because that's probably what my value was. I wasn't
told you what to do.
I was just like, I'm here. But I loved it because I'd be meeting like pretty prominent people.
Sure.
People that we know today still. You'd meet them on the Senate. You know, you see these people on the train and the office buildings and, you know, like Bernie Sanders, Ted Cruz, these people you'd meet because he'd say, hey, meet Will. He was a Notre Dame grad too. And he said, hey, he played football for Notre Dame. So that would always be the NASA director I met, you know, Dick Durbin of Illinois. So it was really cool in that sense. You'd see important shit happening all around you and you'd see important people happening all around you. They'd be in meetings a lot where you'd literally be with them in meetings with pretty influential people like CEOs at major corporations, Secretary of Education, you know, like it was pretty cool to be around it. That said, the job itself, I was not interested in. So that's why I left.
How close to the pulse were you on the happenings of politics prior to that role? Like how close did you pay attention?
Yeah, for a 21-year-old, I would say more so than the average 21-year-old.
Okay.
Yeah. I was into it. And I just hadn't gotten my teeth in it yet.
Sure.
Yeah.
So were there any epiphanies or realizations upon like getting an inside look into their day-to-day in the sense of like maybe what they disclose in the news, like what they comfortably say in the news versus like what they maybe wish they could say or what is actually being said in behind closed doors? Like, you don't have to say exactly what, but like, is there a big difference between like the public perception of politics? Because at the moment, I don't think it's positive. And
that was one of my thoughts when I was there. I just didn't like how it was so divisive. And that was in 2013, 2014. And now it's much worse.
Okay.
So,
something that you're accomplishing with the CEO series is like humanizing CEOs.
Trying to.
when you get to be face to face with some of these individuals, do they become humanized? Like, do you see them in a different light than the public on the news?
Yes.
Right?
They have to.
Is it as divisive as the news makes it out to be?
No.
Right.
I think they're less sensitive than we realize. I think it's more of a game than we realize too. Like utilizing media to accomplish a certain goal. Or I'm not saying all people are manipulative or anything, but you know, like large scale media does use specific titles or headlines or whatever to sway an opinion on something. And I think the more you dive into the nuances of certain issues, you realize that there's more reason than we give credit for. I think it's just important that people are more level-headed than we
like on the extreme example, like if certain podcasters, let's say like if Lex Friedman got Donald Trump, I think a lot of his audience will automatically tune out. Or if Joe Rogan got Donald Trump, right? Like tune out and throw Joe Rogan under the bus for giving someone,
how could you?
Someone like Donald Trump a platform.
Right. I go back and forth on that one.
It's interesting. It's like I wonder if he had the time. Like you said it earlier. Like I didn't have the opportunity to go at length on this certain discussion. Like, if you've been interviewed on the news, it could be a 45-minute long interview and they take 30 seconds, and it's just like it's kind of out of context.
Mm-hmm.
And so if someone was given an opportunity to be candid and have an uncut discussion, I wonder how much more to the middle that they might come off rather than how they are typically portrayed, whether that's left or right,
Yeah, I think that's a major attraction of the shows that we see that are popular and podcasts. There's a reason why it's exploded in the last 10 years is because I think people are becoming more aware of the fact that there are a lot of out of context clips and too short of clips. It's kind of like the debates for the presidential election.
Oh my God.
It's kind of like, would you rather have Trump or Biden in this setting where it's a show and it's produced and you got the red and the white and blue in the background and it's like you're asking these questions, they're interrupting each other? Or would you rather have them both on a 4-hour podcast where they're really diving into these issues? Obviously they can't do that. But my point is like there's a reason why these shows are emerging and becoming super popular. Lex Friedman, Diary of the CEO.
Even like I listened to Vivek Ramaswamy on Breakfast Club.
What'd you think?
A 2.5. That was they could have probably been a little bit more open-minded with maybe like even better questions, but he held his own. He's very eloquent, and when you're given the opportunity to go deeper on certain topics, if the audience is interested, like it's nice to be able to like, I can learn more about this candidate in a 4-hour episode here. Right?
Yeah. Don't you want people to have a safe space a little bit to feel free to talk? Like, I know that what I'm about to say in this format, I get to talk through and I get to explain. And the person asking me questions is doing so in a way that's in good faith.
Yeah.
Versus, say, a 3-minute interview on a major network and they're trying to get you on
There's an agenda.
There's an agenda. And so I think that's a major thesis of what we try to do. We're still a produced show, so it's not like a podcast, like the CEO series, not to skip ahead, but you want people of influence to have the ability to share their true thoughts and let them speak.
Right.
And they need to provide good faith answers too. Like it's also on them to be truthful and honest and sincere in their answers too. I don't think it's a two-way street. So
I would hope. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you made the decision to leave politics, like what was in your headspace then?
That was also another situation similar to me leaving Alabama. I wanted to come back to Chicago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was
so
kind of
home
like
first, and then
it was a mixture. I'm like, this job is not my passion. I don't really see upward movement.
Did you make a lot of friends though over there?
Yeah, it was great. I loved the office that I worked for. Everyone that was in the office was great. The friends that I made outside of work were great too. DC's a wonderful city. I don't know if you've ever been there, but it's
as a kid,
it's an awesome city.
Yeah,
easy to visit too from Chicago. It's easy to get to, and I guess there's so much history there. It's so cool.
At what point did you realize to never burn your bridges? Was that early on, or was it maybe like when you had like an adulting job?
I'm still learning that one.
You're still learning? Yeah. That's interesting.
I don't think I burned any bridges because I think if you asked anyone that I worked with, they would probably say he wasn't into it.
Which is fair.
Which is fair.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. I mean, I think the work that you're doing now, a lot of it is, a lot of credibility is through word of mouth and referrals. And if you continue to do good work, you continue to be referred, right? So you came back home.
Started selling beer.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
At a brewery?
No, it was for Ray's Holdings. They are they're a very large private company in the United States. Then they distribute food and beverage, among other things.
So do they have a portfolio of beers, or like what? Like how did that work? Were they a
so
distributor?
They're
or
a distributor.
They're a distributor.
And I worked
Okay.
for Chicago Beverage, which was one of their
Gotcha.
subsidiaries. And Modelo, Corona, Heineken, Coors, Miller.
So
I would go around to independent liquor stores throughout Chicago.
Yeah.
Literally like throughout all of Chicago.
Oh, wow.
It kind of made me like fall in love with Chicago, to be honest. And then
prior to, because you grew up in the North Shore?
grew up in the North Shore. My parents moved to the city when I went to college. So when I was about 18, they moved to the city. So I've been in the city since 18.
So then when you came back, did you move back in with your parents who were in the city?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, for about a year.
Yeah. And then this job kind of exposed you to everything the city has to offer.
And I'm talking like go to independent liquor stores or bars in the South Side, West Side, North Side, like all over. It was great. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It was fun too. Beer's fun. I wasn't like, I remember telling people in that job, I was like, I'm not actually like the biggest beer fan.
Okay.
I'm a little bit more of a beer fan now than I was. I was still pretty young, like 25, 26 around this time.
Yeah.
And
craft beer was coming up though.
Craft beer so Revolution actually was one of our guests on the show,
I
on the
saw
CEO
that.
series.
You were in the big room.
And
with
I
the
remember like Revolution was like on the up and up while I was a salesman there. It was like hard to get cans. It was hard to get cases.
Wow.
Because of how popular they were.
I remember people lining up for, what's that called at Three Floyds? Day.
I don't know.
Dang. Yeah, so I guess like with the rise of like craft beer and stuff, like I don't know how it is right now. It's kind of plateauing, in my opinion.
There's just a ton.
Recently, I've been reaching for kombucha rather than beer, like at the end of the night.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's and you see a lot of like non-alcoholic stuff coming up as well. So with you were an account manager, or you were an account manager.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
That was fun because that got me like exposed to a lot of different people too. Like I was talking to a ton of people. Actually, at the Senate job too, I was talking to constituents constantly.
Yeah.
So looking back on my career,
You enjoyed.
I'm a talker.
Well, looking back, were you had a knack for like small talk, or did you have a knack for going deep very quickly?
I think I have a knack for making people feel comfortable around me. And I enjoyed that because I think I don't want to make someone feel uncomfortable when they're talking to me. So I just want to, I don't like small talk that much. I think I'm fine at it, but I have ADHD. So I think I just like keep talking. You saw when I walked into this room, I kind of just like, I just would rather talk than sit in silence.
Right.
Some
and
people
then
are like totally comfortable.
I'm sure you get it as a host. It's like, don't spill too much though. I didn't hit the record button yet.
No, absolutely. I could tell by when you were talking, you were like saving. So yeah, I get it. No, I totally get it. So I was just filling in the air for you. No, but
I guess, did you notice a difference between the people that you worked with in Capitol Hill versus like bar people, like kind of blue collar people in bottle shops and bars?
So when I was at the senator's office, you don't call your representative when you're happy. That's not a thing. Hey, you're doing a great job. That's not a thing. So, and Obama was president at the time, and he's a Democrat in Indiana. So you can imagine the types of constituents that we were talking to. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like they were thrilled with how things were going and how, say, he was voting. But that was great because I'd have to talk to them and they'd be pissed. And you're kind of like their...
So you talk to constituents or you talk to your boss?
All the time.
Oh, really?
All the time.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, like literally that was my day-to-day
Like you're
job.
like the middleman.
Yeah, kind of, because they are a representative, so you need to like respond to mail. You need to talk to them on the phone, like literally. They're going to call in, and you need to respond to people on the phone and talk to them.
Do you have
sometimes
any,
for 20 minutes
if
where you're describing why they voted a certain way, and there's an element of having like a talk track, why he voted this way. But then after a certain amount of time, you're like, all right, well then we just need to talk, and
I think that's the key. It's like I guess I was going to ask, like, if you were to reflect, what were some tactics to diffuse a situation, diffuse like a heated moment?
Just let people speak.
They want to feel heard and seen, right?
Yeah, because if you just start arguing with someone and come out as an adversary, or like it's a contentious conversation right away, then that's what you're going to get.
Right.
And it's hard to pull away from that once that's established.
Oh my God, yeah.
And so I've always appreciated that about people when I am observing them. If you're calm in any situation, usually it's a better situation because some of the people in this were calm.
Yeah.
So I just, it goes back to what we just talked about too, with like interviewing someone. I'm not a journalist, nor am I trying to be, but one beef that I have sometimes when I see interviews, when I'm just observing, is sometimes I feel like the interviewer is trying to get something out of it. And I don't mean a headline or anything.
A leading
it's more,
question.
like it's a leading question in a way that is, it's almost like the interviewer is trying to prove their smarts or their worth to the person and kind of win. And that's not, in my opinion, that's certainly not my job. But like, I don't think if you're having like a good conversation with someone, you probably shouldn't immediately try to win something. You're just trying to, if I'm just trying to have a conversation with someone.
Yeah. Be humble.
So, well, not even that. It's just like, be a person. Like, don't try to like, you're not competing right now. Just try to like, if you have a question, just ask the question. Yeah. Try to ask a good question. I agree.
Right.
And then listen. And then if they say something if they say something that's bullshit or it strays away, correct them or try to put them back, like, hold them accountable if you're a journalist.
Right.
Again, I'm not a journalist. So like,
it's interesting. It's like you're not a journalist by trade, but you practice journalism.
Yes. Right? Yeah. Yes and no. Yeah. Because journalism, they have like an ethical responsibility too. So it's same, but different.
So what was the headspace with the being an account manager for the beverage, for the distributor? Did it lead to a comfortable life? Did you want to move out of the home?
I moved out.
You moved out. Okay.
Moved out.
Okay.
It was a good job. It's a great company. They are truly one of the best companies in the world. And so in that sense, I loved being there, and they did things the right way, and you learned from really smart people.
I have a cousin who is in the logistics world, and like you get insight into like how the world works, and especially when the pandemic and supply chain issues. Yeah. Did you gain insight? Even like you're on one side as far as like front facing to the business, but I'm sure you also hear it when needs aren't met because you're the rep, right?
Yeah. I mean, I gained insight in pretty specific ways.
Okay.
You start to see maybe say a neighborhood trend if 4 liquor stores in a given neighborhood are not doing well, and then like a Mariano's comes in and that does really well.
Oh, wow.
And so now it takes away from, because I did independent liquor stores, so
sure.
It would be more mom and pop owned shops, and then like they'd be very upset if like a Mariano's came in because that would take their business.
Yeah.
So in that sense, you'd see certain trends over time. You'd realize like, oh, the orders are kind of going down, or maybe they're going up. So. But it was pretty specific to beer. It's not like I was selling other liquor.
I wonder if box stores like Mariano's even are interested in like higher end craft things, spirits and beer. I know like Whole Foods has some like craft stuff, but not the ones that you might find in an independent bottle shop.
Yeah, they probably have more.
It's a different demographic, I think.
Yeah,
at least now.
Big box retail has more guardrails to like get a product in.
For sure.
So, Revolution had a harder time getting into Target than Miller Lite.
Yeah. Now that the first time I saw Maplewood on the shelves at Target, I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Good for them.
Yeah. That's great. That's a good win right there.
So what what were you thinking at this time? Like, are you fulfilled?
I'm doing a job that I don't like again.
Really? Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not
okay.
that again, like it's
some people fall in the trap of just complaining, but like if you are complaining, like what are you doing about it?
So we talked about my dad and passion, and both my parents preached that to me, and my brothers did that too, and that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to find something where I can sink my teeth into it and do it and really care about it. And when you're working super hard, you don't really feel that way. Now, like that's what I was looking for. Mm-hmm. The first 2 jobs I had out of college were not that, where I was like, this is it. Like this is where I want to really sink my teeth in and do this for my career.
Like you tried and it didn't give that feeling to you.
Right.
Interesting.
So it was fun. It was a great experience. I'm really glad I did it. Worked literally, working in Capitol Hill for a senator, meeting some of the people I met, being with the staff and everything. That was awesome. And then At the next company selling beer, same thing. Some of the people that you meet and talk to and interact with, like looking back, great experiences. So glad it happened, but not something where I want to spend years and years and years.
Was that kind of like a 9-to-5 job, or did you have time to explore creative avenues?
No.
Oh no.
It was a 9-to-5. It was like a 9-to-5 in the sense that I didn't I wasn't working until 10 p.m.
But you didn't,
I wasn't pursuing creative avenues at all.
Out of just like because you were doing other things, or like you?
I was just 25-year-old in the city of Chicago hanging out.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
So at what point did you feel like what do you do to explore certain, like your creative or like your passions then?
So my brother Chris and I have always wanted to. We always wanted to be entrepreneurs. We always wanted to run a company.
It seems romantic.
Definitely seems romantic. The reality is, we always wanted to be an entrepreneur, run a company. We always kind of had that business sense. That's actually why I went from political science and working in Capitol Hill to a company like Race Holdings, which is I'm going from the public sector. I was a government employee to the private sector at one of the best privately run businesses in the country, learning from people who they are good at business, quote unquote. Business is very broad. So Chris was a college football coach at the time.
Oh.
And we were like, let's start a marketing agency.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because we liked video, we liked media just as observers. We started planning it for about 6 months, and then we wanted to do videos for lawyers and doctors and financial.
Well, that's interesting because at this point you've cultivated a network through your being an account manager.
Yeah, but it was so specific to liquor and beer. That network was not that valuable. That's not that valuable.
You were coming at it from that angle.
Yeah, we were coming at the
business angle.
From the business angle. So this was in 2016 is when we started to plan plan Salvi Media.
Yeah.
And lawyers, doctors, financial managers.
Why did you start with them? Is it because they
had shitty content?
Oh.
And it's very personal.
Shitty content, and they have money.
I would actually say they're not the best people to sell to.
Why they don't feel like they need it?
That and usually say lawyers, they're not like big corporations that have tons of marketing spend.
No.
So it just depends on what you're going for.
God, I walked through a co-working space yesterday, and I would say 95% of the offices were empty. Maybe it was just later in the day, but it was like 3:30, 4 o'clock, and they told me that companies just use it as a tax write-off, and like the people, so they don't even fill it sometimes.
Yeah, it's a bummer.
Like, what the fuck? What a waste.
Yeah, it's a bummer.
Come on.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, it's...
And so, did you have tangible people to start from when you decided you want to pursue attorneys?
Do you mean clients or people to learn from? Well, obviously, we used our dad right away. Right away, we made biography videos on 10 lawyers.
Yeah.
We did a personal financial manager.
Sure.
Was our very first client for $500.
Wow.
And me and Chris filmed it. It was total shit.
And you bought your own gear at that time?
Yeah, we went to Best Buy and bought a photography camera, thinking it was a videography for video, but it was not.
So did you
classic.
So how'd you make? Did you make video, or did you
we did make video?
You did make video.
Yeah.
With what camera then?
It was a Canon. But it was primarily, it wasn't 4K. It was we should have gotten.
Okay.
Then we started doing the A7s.
These are technically photo too. They without these monitors, they shut off after 30 minutes.
Yeah. These are good cameras. Then we moved on to those. Literally that one. And so the first 6 months, Chris and I, we did a bunch of boot camps in marketing courses, video editing, just so we can start learning it. But then we realized the power of delegating to people who are much more talented than we are.
You realized that early on? That early?
Oh my gosh. It was we were filming it, and the video's on YouTube. It's horrible. It's
interesting because when someone starts out and they're bootstrapping, they usually spend their own sweat equity or their own money to do this. And so outsourcing that early on wouldn't actually, it's interesting that it happened for you that early.
Yeah, there's probably something I'm doing right now that we probably should be outsourcing.
Well, I mean, I if you have the room and the budget to outsource, that's the best way to do it.
Yeah.
But when you are limited in funds, you're going to try to do as much. Like, I'm a one-man show still, right? I'm going to do everything myself as much as I can.
But you can still send, say if you sold a $10,000 photography project to a corporate office, you can sell that.
Yeah.
And then hire out a crew to fit that budget and fit the margin. So
yeah, I'm not a good businessman.
Yeah, so that's how we.
That's good. That's good.
That's how we. So if you sold a 10,000, you don't have to necessarily think I need to sell it and do it. Like you could sell it and then have your freelancers say if you have a queue of 5 photographers, I got you 5. Here are the price ranges of the 5, and I'm going to fit them into the budget based on the needs of the client.
Sure,
so that's what we started to do.
So after the or that first client, the financial manager.
Horrible
$500.
Horrible video.
We all start somewhere.
Yeah.
Right? We all start somewhere. Well, with that reaction, it's just like we need to make more money. We need to up our game or maybe outsource. Like what was some...
Up the game.
Up the game, okay.
Yeah, just there's so many talented people in the creative space, making videos, photography. There's so many talented people. Independent people, agencies. Like there's... The creme de la creme is in this space. So we just needed to keep up in the game.
Okay. So then where's is this your own personal money at this point? Because I know you had family invest later on, but like, what did you do for work? I mean, like, if you're putting your own money into this, like,
well, we were getting clients early on.
I guess leading to how does one, because it's very hard for most creatives to create a budget of like, this is what my packages are worth. How does one build those packages? And it might differ depending on what your project is and who your client is.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's a question for everyone to figure out in your own business.
Sure.
But how to, you just have to, what are you providing the client and what can you take on financially? Meaning like what margin do you want on it? Are there certain projects that you want to give away for free because you want to get into that client? I would recommend not doing that.
Well, yeah, because there's value in that.
There's
right?
value in it, but it's just like it's a slippery slope. Like some people aren't like as loyal as you think they are with regards. Oh, you're going to give me this free project? I'm going to hire you the next time. I have a feeling
you learn that the hard way.
You do something. You do. Can we do 5,000 instead of 10,000 because I'll give you a better deal next time, or I'll introduce you to more people. I've heard that before. So.
It's tough.
Yeah, it's just the life that you live as a small business, you have to figure that out. And
have you noticed that like with larger budgets, there's less back and forth?
Actually, I have. Yeah. Not always, but I think the more serious companies respect the separation of, say, you're hiring a third party to produce, say, a couple of videos, or if they're hiring an agency, I think smart people understand that you're hiring them for a reason. When you're a small business and you get hired by a small business, they have more skin in the game. They're more personally invested.
They are
more careful about what they're putting out there. So maybe they're going to be more involved.
Sure.
And that can be good. That can be bad. It just depends on who you're dealing with and how they deal with things. But I would say that the more serious organizations, and that can be small organizations all the way up to major corporations, the more serious organizations will respect the relationship that they hired you for.
It's interesting because I had a feeling like I could have done that with the podcast as well, as far as like the podcast is a funnel to meet very interesting people, and then kind of spawn off into like an agency company and try to, and with your end goal of trying to make people that seem distant, humanizing and approachable. I just haven't done that yet. So I big kudos to you guys. What were some of the early high profile guests that you had on?
We started off with Ed Waymer, the CEO, founder and CEO of Wintrust.
I was in that building yesterday.
Were you?
They host Industrious, co-working space, right across from the Federal Reserve.
Yes. It's a cool, the Grand Ballroom's awesome.
Yeah.
It's a huge building.
Wow, that's amazing. But that was that networking? That was a family friend?
Yeah, so we grew up with, we went to grade school with his children.
Wow.
Yeah. So I emailed them and I said, hey, we're going to do a show called What's It Like? What's it like to be a publicly traded or CEO of a publicly traded bank? I interviewed a presidential candidate, Eric Swalwell. What's it like to run for president? So that was the original idea of the series, is what's it like?
Yeah.
And we'd choose a bunch of different fun things. So we started off with Ed Waymer, and then we did the presidential candidate. But then I asked Ed Waymer, do you know anyone who would want to be interviewed?
Yeah.
And he said, how about Jerry Reinsdorf?
That's so epic.
And Tom Ricketts.
That's so
and
epic.
Greg Brown of Motorola. And who's the other one? Pat Gallagher of Gallagher Insurance. I mean, these are major people. And I was like, yeah. And as we were driving home, we had 4 emails to these guys. And that helped us
From these guys?
Excuse me, from Ed Waymer with us on the email with these
He
people.
acts fast.
Yeah, he acts fast. And he's been a mentor of ours since. Like, he literally has no problem. I really respect that, because not everyone does that. And he literally, like, no questions asked. And
It honestly took me longer than it should have to recognize the value of time, and respecting other people's time. And if you don't if you don't respect, like, for example, arriving early, or on the opposite side, arriving late, and if you don't respect someone else's time, you're inevitably, ultimately, not respecting your own time.
yeah,
And so the utmost respect for the people that are perceived to be busier than you, and they probably are, to give you the time of day.
absolutely. Sorry, I took a sip of coffee. No, I mean, I'm grateful to Ed Waymer. Yeah. And, we went to grade school with his kids, but it's not like there were none in my grade and there were none in Chris's grade. It's just a family friend.
Wow.
And they started at Lake Forest Bank was their,
Okay.
That's where we grew up. And Lake Forest Bank was like the first in the early 90s.
Wow.
And now it's Wintrust as we know it. And I respect the way he does things, in the sense of, I like to think that we came to him with like a pure intention to ask. Like, I wasn't saying like, give me a budget and give me a project.
Right,
It's like,
right.
do you know anyone? Like, I have this, it's a video on you. At the time, it was a super friendly video to these people.
Yeah.
Like, when I look back at the old CEO episodes, I would do them completely different. I wish I could refilm all 3 of those guys, all 4 of them.
Why does it have to be one and done?
It shouldn't, and I want the series to actually not be that way.
So I guess with the series, in order for someone to come on the series, do they pay to be on the series?
No.
Or it's similar to like this, like people don't pay me to come on this, right?
No,
It's just,
I ask.
yeah.
After I got those 4 guests, it was easier to ask randomly. Like my brother Chris is the CEO of our agency.
Okay.
And now we focus on executive comms. We started the series literally 2-3 months before COVID.
Oh, wow.
When COVID struck, we started making these episodes and releasing them. But then we also got into live streaming and live event hosting, where we'd set up cameras. This is not something that we market, but we called like 500 funerals in the Midwest area, not because of COVID specifically, because we were like, well, let's call funeral homes and we'll do live streams, because people can't go to the funeral homes anymore. So we need business. Like, we need to figure out like how to get business. So we actually
funeral homes would offer your services to people.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's
and so
very good.
we did some live stream funerals.
If you don't mind, like, how much would that cost?
Like,
how much would that cost someone?
$3 to $10,000, depending on who it was and how
Holy
large
shit,
it
though.
was.
I don't know what the cost of a funeral. I mean, if I were to guess, like, based on one of the previous guests, private citizen at the time like wrote a bill into place that has the state pay up to $10,000 if a family had a child who was a victim of gun violence. The state would pay. So when he says that up to $10,000, I'm just like guessing that might be the cost of funeral and burial services. So, wow, $3,000. I mean, that's great.
Yeah.
Great for you guys.
So we don't really market that one because we were calling funeral homes, and we were like, well, people are going to continue to die. Again, it
100%.
wasn't like people are going to die because of COVID, therefore let's jump on it. It was more so you can't go to a funeral home anymore, and people are scared right now. So they need a live stream.
You know, the similarities in the sense of I wanted to do this and offer this to people that want to have a recorded conversation with their loved one, especially at the end of their life.
That's nice. Yeah. You should.
I haven't thought about like
deep.
costs or anything like that, and if they wanted my help with coming up with questions, but it'd be a family thing, right, or a friend thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, the funeral thing made me think of that.
Yeah. COVID.
We actually had that at the wedding. One of the videographers set up our bridal suite into a podcast.
Oh, that's cool.
Space.
Yeah,
And like
I've noticed.
we got like 45 minutes worth of podcasting back.
Yeah. I've noticed the phones at weddings too, where
Yeah,
you leave,
we had that too.
You leave a
Yeah.
voicemail. Those are kind of, and it gets drunk. You get drunker and drunker as
Oh,
the
yeah.
night goes on. Yeah. So
Did anything remarkable happen in the rest of the pandemic for you guys?
no,
More brainstorming, any pivoting?
no, yeah. We're not a video production house.
Yeah.
Like when we started, that's how we were marketing ourselves. We make videos and we do photos and live stream.
Yeah.
And then we pivoted more to agency. We want to be strategically thinking about your company, your brand. When you do make videos, like what is the messaging behind it? And then as the series kept developing, the CEO series, as it kept developing, we started thinking like, oh, we're decent at like positioning executives. Like our goal is not to sell executives on the series. Our goal is to talk to them. That's it. And make a show about them and get to know them a little bit more. I'll go down that rabbit hole in a little bit, but now we've pivoted to, in the last like year and a half, executive communications and employee engagement. So we're like making content specifically with executives to showcase who they are when they have a goal or an initiative that they want to push internally. When you have thousands of employees, what's a good way to do that? In person, through a memo? I would say that you should probably do it in a way that's a little more personal. And I think video content is a great way to do that, and then static content. So we've been doing that for a little bit, and the series keeps going. So we're
with strategy, I guess like what helps build credibility in order to offer advice on strategy?
Well, you need case studies.
Okay.
Otherwise, it's just abstract.
Yeah.
It's a bit of an abstract term. What is strategy?
Did you feel, like what is
strategy?
the right way?
Yeah, right.
So like, I mean, having just started that series, like, how comfortable did you feel like with providing advice on strategy?
Not.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah,
and so
not.
what were you doing to
just
gain
happy
a level of mastery?
We were just happy to get the interviews with the series when it first started. We were like, oh, cool. Like Tom Ricketts. Great.
Yeah.
Like this is awesome.
And I guess you guys are into sports. So it's like,
yeah, it was great.
Like for when I had Chris, his stage name was Chris Harvard, but Chris Nowinski.
Yeah, I did a video for Concussion Legacy Foundation. I just realized that I saw that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I know Chris. Yeah.
There you go.
So that's who you were talking about the concussions.
I am.
Yeah. He went viral a couple times.
That felt like a once in a lifetime thing, in the sense of like I was asked to do it a day prior, and I was like, I usually give myself 2 weeks to prep.
My brother was on the board of Concussion Legacy Foundation.
Oh my god!
Yeah.
Okay, we
Small
probably
world.
have some more overlap then.
Yeah. Nice guy.
I guess to my lack of interest in sports or availability, I don't have time. I didn't get starstruck. I don't know, and maybe that definitely helps me be present. I'm sure. I don't know if you guys have ever experienced being like starstruck.
Never.
Okay, yeah,
I
with
like
Jerry Reinsdorf.
So
or Tom
I actually
Ricketts.
think this is a major part of who I am personally. I don't.
The curiosity exceeds.
I don't care. It's super cool.
It's like we acknowledge like their status.
It's super cool that you're the owner of the Cubs. It's super cool that you're the CEO of Wintrust Bank. It's super cool that you're the head coach of Notre Dame Football. Whoever I've met, it's super cool that you're a United States Senator. But guess what? You have insecurities just like I do.
Ooh.
You need a dude wipe every now and then, just like I do. No, but for real, like it's always. Of course, I've gotten starstruck before. Like I've no doubt, but with any of the CEOs. I mean, Notre Dame Football head coach, we just interviewed, and I've never met him, and I'm a fan of his. I played for a different coach, and this is a new one. And he's a bit of a celeb in the Notre Dame world, in college sports world. And I told him, I was like, I'm pumped to be here, and let's get to it. Like, I think that's one element that I do that as well is kind of like I'm comfy.
Ease the
I'm
tension,
comfortable. Yeah. Not to say that I don't want the interview to do well, and in that sense, I get butterflies, and I'm like, I want the video to do well
for different reasons. Yeah,
for different reasons. But I don't really like you go home and watch Netflix just like I do sometimes, and you're incredibly busy individuals, and there's a lot to learn from you, and there's a lot to There's a lot of perspective to gain from you, but you're a person, and people are flawed.
Yeah. That's a good way to look at it. I really enjoyed the last one with the CEO of Portillo's.
Yeah,
that was a really nice.
We won an Emmy with that one.
How does one even get nominated for it?
You nominate yourself.
Oh, you do,
and they have to choose. So you put it in for nomination. Excuse me. Okay, you don't get nominated yourself.
Yeah,
it's a submission. So we got nominated 2 years ago for Ship Bob.
What's that?
It's a logistics company that it's basically a
like
competitor
it was an episode.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And they're actually going public soon, so they're doing really well. Unicorn. They were valued over $1 billion, but now they're going public. So we'll see how much they're valued at soon. But
yeah, Portillo's.
We got nominated for Ship Bob. Lost that one to like a guy who interviewed a general on January 6th. We were like, we're going to lose that one.
What's wait, so are there separate submissions for each category?
No, so we did one category each year. We've been nominated twice, won one. It's interview and discussion.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with Studs Terkel?
No.
He's a Chicago. He was a Chicagoan.
It's a cool name.
But I think he was on NPR. But like they have archives of interviews. He's written books, most notably the book I think Working, where each chapter is like a different individual. It's like a podcast guest like transcribed into book form, essentially. But it's like everyday workers, and it's just like insight into a police officer, insight into a prostitute, like
cool.
whatever it is.
Yeah.
Is there any part of you that wants to interview anyone else outside of a CEO?
No.
Wow.
Not right now. Not for this series specifically, because there's there's no. I do want to interview other people in other shows,
right.
And we think about that a lot. I do want it to be on a business focus. I don't want to necessarily kind of like stray outside that line.
Yeah.
But I want to stick with CEOs for this. There's a lot of shows that like it's the CEO series, and now I'm talking to.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. It could be a separate show.
Yeah.
I guess I wonder.
I'm fascinated by CEOs.
Yeah. At this point, do you see a lot of similarities? Like, what have you gained from how a CEO operates carries themselves, how they speak to others, and maybe some day to day if you've managed to talk about stuff like that?
They're incredibly focused individuals. I think they all are talented.
Yeah.
The ones that we've filmed have been pretty large companies compared to the average company, average CEO. So in that sense, like I think they're very good at business. And I say it broadly like that because each industry and each business has differences and similarities. But I think overall, like most of the CEOs we've talked to are very focused and good at what they do, and that's why they're there. I mean, we've talked to billion-dollar companies that have raised hundreds of millions of dollars. That's no joke. And they have, some of them have. We just interviewed one with 10,000 employees. That's like you're the mayor of a town at that point, quite literally. And you have shareholders breathing down your neck.
Yeah.
And CEO, like I'm fascinated by the role, especially the larger you go, because they are people. And so if you're the CEO of these major corporations, you lead 10,000 people, 20,000 people, whatever, you manage a massive P&L, and all we see you on primarily, most of the CEOs is news, it's CNBC, Bloomberg, you see a quote on it, you never see them. And you could work for these people.
Right.
You could be a top 100 employee and not know who they are.
Yeah.
Personally.
Yeah.
So that's why we do it, is because like, I want to get to know them a little bit more. It's a 15-minute episode. It's not like it's some crazy long podcast where you're like, man, I really know the CEO Portillo's now. But I want to give someone a sense of their personality.
And you do. Yeah, you guys succeed in that. How long is like the uncut version, if there is an uncut version?
We do about like a 45-minute sit down where it's a little bit more of a formal interview. And then we do what I ask for, not always given to me based on their time, but what I ask for is another like 45 minutes or so doing something contextual to their business. So for Portillo's, we ordered an Italian beef together and we ate it on camera.
Oh, I love that.
So it's a little bit of like an undercover boss situation without them being undercover.
That's so fun. And that's something that I've thought about and never executed, in the sense of like, I have all these interesting people come on and I would love to take the time to stroll into their business and like get behind the scenes. And a lot of like influencers do it, like content creators do it, and they get to like make a sandwich together or, have a meal together. And I just never have done that.
Hey, just ask. I just asked these people.
Yeah, right.
I don't get many of them through referrals. The first 4 I got, and a couple of them I do get through referrals.
Right.
Say if you worked at Portillo's and me and you were good buddies, I would message you in a text. I'd say, hey, you work at, do you know anyone in their communications or PR team? And if yes, great. I might be able to go down that rabbit hole. But primarily where I get these people information is their website and like PR at, press at portillos.com or press. So
I guess, if I were to go down that rabbit hole, I would probably need to rent a team or like hire a team.
Yeah.
Right?
It's expensive.
It's tough.
Yeah.
So like I've told you, these cameras overheated before. My mental space at the moment is like 90% here and then like 10% praying that doesn't go out.
Right.
So it's hard to be present. And I can't imagine if you're on scene with someone and you're holding a conversation, you're walking around, you're doing some activity. It's just like there's a lot going on.
There's a lot going on. It's definitely like more of a show, and I've gotten used to that. Where
do you kind of channel the Anthony Bourdain a little bit?
I love Anthony Bourdain. I do need to remind myself like this is like I need to be on right now.
Yeah.
Maybe I wake up one day and I'm not as into it.
100%.
But I do get up for it every single time. I mean, I'm so excited when we're talking to Verano on Friday. And next Friday.
Mariano's? Is that the coffee thing?
So it's a cannabis, publicly traded cannabis company. They did $1 billion in revenue.
Wow.
Super cool.
Yeah.
And, what's it like to be a CEO of a major cannabis company where you are at the mercy of like legislation?
Yeah.
Like it's not legal.
Exactly.
Federally. And there's banking issues that they have to deal with. There's scheduling issues of the drugs. So like, what's that like?
Yeah.
Does he lobby often in DC? Does he have a team that does, so I'm interested in that sense.
What was it? I forgot the name of his show. He doesn't host it anymore, but like he was a chef in the city and, his family has the restaurant Wishbone. But he partnered with a media company called Dog Food Media. And
I've heard of them.
Because of his network, like he would like cook a meal, eat a meal, and then like even go to these chefs' houses. But the common thread is they would all smoke a blunt.
Yeah.
Oh,
I asked if they wanted to, and he was like, "No, we're publicly traded. Like, we're not doing that." Yeah.
Pull a little Elon Musk there.
Yeah. I was like, After I asked, I was like, I don't even know if I want to do that because I will have trouble getting more guests
if I do that.
And
throughout the 20 minutes, this episode will leave.
Yeah. I'm okay. But we've talked to we have some exciting. We just went to New York.
Wow.
So we originally were just in Chicago. There's a lot of great companies in Chicago.
Oh, you've recorded an episode in New York.
I've recorded 3.
3 episodes in New York.
I'm going back in June.
Wow.
One was on the New York Stock Exchange floor. It was awesome.
That's amazing.
Norma Chu. It was a Singapore-based food, and it's like a media food brand. It's super weird. It's been morphing into like a food product brand, but it started as a media brand. That was great. I like CNBC a lot, so like CNBC was right behind us. So it was really cool.
Very cool. How long does it take you to prep for on average for these episodes, for these guests?
So we have one coming up in 2 weeks. I just read and watch all the stuff I can about it. Yeah. I can't really quantify how long it takes, but
I guess how do you because a lot of the people that you meet have probably had interviews before, have been interviewed several times. And so how do you, in good faith, ask them questions that obviously, bring out the best in them, but make it fulfilling for them as well? Because that's personally my goal, is to ask questions that they might have not been asked.
Yeah, so I come from a different angle because they are CEOs. And I think at this point I've established that the show is not like, let's just talk about your earnings or let's talk about the P&L and how you manage your business. And that's primarily what their interviews are about when I look it up.
Okay.
Not all of them. I mean, some of them have more humanizing stuff out there, but like a longer form podcast. But I mean, again, we've gotten to some CEOs where they're publicly traded, they're large corporations, and they only interviews they do are about their business. So in that sense, they're excited to do it because it's a little bit different, and they get to do like, fun walk and talk. And I'm lighthearted. I'm easygoing when I'm around them, and the crew we're like 5 or 6 people. So it's not like some heavy production or anything. Don't get me wrong. There's a ton that goes into it, but it's a fun day. Yeah. And that's how I think it should be. I don't want them to think of me as like, all right, we're talking about the earnings tomorrow and I need to make sure no, that's not my goal here. My goal here is you're a CEO. What are you like? What's it like to be a publicly, you're running a company it's not everyone can be a CEO. It's hard to be a CEO. It's hard to be a CEO. And then the higher you go, it gets harder and harder and harder. The pressure's there. The board can kick you out in a month if you don't perform. People think the CEO is responsible for everything in the company. They catch a lot of flack. Sometimes there's a negative perception with CEOs, but all the ones that I've met, their internal teams love them. They're warm individuals. They're good leaders from what I've heard, and not everyone's perfect. So it's like, there's definitely some guests that we've had where, maybe they don't do things the way like I would want to be led or something. But for the most part, like I've had great interactions with all of them. And again, I want people to, when they watch it, I want people to be interested in business. Like I'm not looking for everyone to watch this show. Like you need to have like an interest in like business content.
Yeah. So like LinkedIn would be one of your best places to post.
LinkedIn is good for our series. And yeah, like business professionals, like, oh, cool. Let's learn about the Verano CEO.
Yeah.
And we are agnostic to industry too. So we've had the Verano CEO, we've had a concrete company, we've had a bank, we've had sports teams. So it's I want a variety, because if you're interested in business, say if you're a 30-year-old and you're interested in business, like, yeah, you get to learn and see different leaders in all avenues of business, all different age ranges. The one thing that I struggle with is diversity on the show. Like I literally, at a high level of company and high level of CEO, it's hard to find a non-white male.
Oh,
truly
interesting.
So that's one thing that I struggle with. And, we ask, name a CEO.
Like would a Google search help you? Like a person of color CEO.
Yeah. Name them
in Chicago. I don't know.
Name them. I've asked them.
I'm sure it'd be hard to name, but if you do the search, I wonder how many are in Chicago and how many would be open to an interview.
There's a few in Chicago. There's a few really great ones in Chicago. Yeah. I've asked them all. They all say no. Yeah. I've probably asked about 750 total companies and CEOs, and I've only had 35 guests. So there's a lot of
with
those.
That, like, I know I have room for improvement on cold emails and cold, like, it depending on, I try to examine like what vessel they're most present on, like whether that's in the DMs of Instagram or email. And if it was a mutual friend, then that's the best way. But if you were to draft a cold email, how do you quickly build rapport and a level of comfortability or vulnerability, like in the level, like, or create a safe space for them, to get the sense that this might be worth my time?
So it helps. We have a partnership with entrepreneur.com.
Yeah. Okay.
And Reach TV.
Okay.
So from a business outcome standpoint, that helps me get guests.
Okay.
Because when I reach out to press at blank company, they're more enticed because there's distribution.
Gotcha.
Just like your Instagram has 35,000 followers, that's attractive to someone who wants to be on it.
Gotcha.
Right? So why would my CEO do this if it's not worth his or her time?
Right.
So that's number one, is I think like making sure that the questions that they have are answered. And then other than that, I get a little aggressive, to be honest. I say, hey, so-and-so, I just talked to Southwest Airlines and I said, hey, I see your CEO. Here it is. Like, here's the show. I'm the host. Here's our YouTube channel. Here's the link from entrepreneur.com. They do a post for each episode. They have 6 million followers. So I give them like the metrics of like, this is where it's going to be seen.
Yeah.
And then I say, what's their personality like? Who are they? What's their story? What got them to be the CEO of a major company like this? And then I'll research some of their videos. I'll say, who convinced him to do this interview? Like, mine will be much better than this. And I'll just say, like, why would you always do the typical CNBC or Bloomberg interview? Instead, you can do it with me. And so far, it works.
That is pretty aggressive.
Yeah, it works. Sometimes people probably say...
But it shows that you did your homework.
Yeah, and I think like sometimes people shrug and they laugh at me, and trust me, I've literally asked over 700 companies, and these are major companies.
Sure. I
They're
know.
not,
These are very busy people.
yeah, like name a big company that you know. Like I'd probably ask them. I'm not kidding. And all the press people have their press emails out there.
Yeah.
So Microsoft has their press emails out there.
Wow.
When you search a Microsoft press release, you can find
Sure.
people to email.
Yeah.
So that's what I do. I scour the internet. I find the people that I want to interview or their press email. And then I say, do you want Elon Musk on an Emmy winning show? He's too extreme of an example because like he's on the best shows and he's like a very, he
does as he pleases.
He does as he pleases. And yeah, he's out there enough. But so I'll start with, I'll test out different subject lines. I'll send them all the information, a deck, here are the metrics. And then I'll just kind of give a pitch that's like, come on, like this is a good show. It's going to make your CEO, like indirectly your CEO will look, it's giving him or her an opportunity to speak in a way that's, it's lighthearted. It's fun. It's a show. Like we're trying to like get to know the CEO. And I just reach out to them and then I follow up if they give me any inkling. And
I think I was very impressed with the wide shot of, and this is probably, you can get this shot from any of your productions, but from Portillo's. So in the video, there was a wide shot of you in the background with 3 lights and the CEO. And that gives a prospective guest an idea of what, like seeing that production, they're not fucking around.
No, we actually switched that too. We stopped doing that.
So what is it now though?
I'm on camera with them.
Right. Right.
So
but
before,
is the setup though? Is that
setup's the same.
That's what I mean.
3
that's
cameras.
What I mean. It's just like when
I'm going to give a shout out to my crew too. We've had the same crew for like 18 episodes now.
Okay.
So a lot. And the same editor for the last like 25 episodes. And
great job with that.
Mike Herzopoulos, Megan Bastito is the producer, Miguel's Aponte is the producer, my brother Chris is the producer, Steve Black, best audio guy in the Midwest, man, the myth, the legend, Steve, and then Colton Weiss, he works on a ton of stuff with us, and then Armand Anderson, and then we got a couple other that trickle in and out depending on availability. But it's a ragtag group.
That's a big group though.
It's a big group, and like they all get it. They all get the show. Wow. We all get it. They get me as a host. And to your point, I don't have to, you just mentioned like 10% of you is thinking about other things. We've done a good job at everyone's got their thing on the show. And now I just need to focus on hosting. Oh, okay. So, and my role within the show is obviously I'm the main facilitator of getting guests. Yeah. But we've gotten my brother Chris helps get guests. Other people have helped us get guests. Yeah. And then hosting, and then, we just signed like a license agreement with Reach TV and the partnership with Entrepreneur. So that's in the, executive.
That's
producing.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah, the big hurdle at the moment is reach and distribution.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So outside of the free channels like social media, YouTube, what does it take to start partnering with bigger paid channels?
That's the $1 million question. I guess same thing. I mean, unfortunately, my network is really strong in the Chicagoland area.
Okay.
My network, I'm fortunate enough to have like we mentioned Ed Waymer I went to grade school with his kids. Like that starts a network that's pretty profound right then and there. Mm-hmm. So our network's really strong in this region, but from like a media perspective, it's not as strong. And major media where like this show, where I would want this show to live, is on the coasts. It's not in Chicago.
Interesting. Wait, so it currently lives on the coast? And
no, just like that's where major media corporations are. They're in New York or in LA.
Oh, yeah. I see. I got
that's where like, CNBC is in New York.
But I mean, distribution is if it's all over the country, if not
sorry, I meant just from a people to people standpoint. Like I don't know anyone say at CNBC. I know people at Wintrust Bank, but that doesn't really do me any good with regards to like now I need to get in quote unquote with people from like a CNBC or a Bloomberg or a Fortune or Wall Street Journal, whatever.
Yeah.
It's a tough game. So Entrepreneur was a cold email reach out. So we just developed a relationship. Nice. Reach TV was a cold reach out. So
is there anything outside of more guests due to credibility that have happened after your partnership with Entrepreneur?
Yes, it's a major factor of how we get guests. Yeah. It's a good partnership.
But is there any other doors that have opened
from it?
Yeah.
Outside of guests, you said?
Yeah.
No. I would just say it's nice for credibility purposes.
Yeah.
It's an established publication that's been around for a little bit, and it just helps for credibility purposes. Because if I reach out to a serious CEO and ask him to be on a show, the first question is, who the hell are you? So if I can answer that right away by saying I'm on entrepreneur.com or this show, at this point, we're 4 years into the show. We've gotten good enough guests to where most people will give us a look.
Yeah.
But the higher you go, the more they say, well, why the hell would I spend time with you when I can do this with Wall Street Journal? Right. Like this CEO just got asked to be on Wall Street Journal. Why would I do this with you? He's already busy. Why would I do it with you?
It's the questions, man.
That's the question.
It's the question.
Yeah, well, I would argue, why the fuck would you put him on Wall Street Journal? I can do a much better job, and trust me, internally and externally, people will like your CEO more after doing my interview versus Wall Street Journal.
Right.
And I stand firmly on that one.
Yeah. As you should.
And I'll tell them that in the call too.
Good. I like the confidence.
Sorry. I don't know if it's blind though or not.
Well, sometimes, a friend calls it delusional confidence, right?
Yeah, right.
I sometimes get questions on like people wanting to start their own show and how to start. And then you might get intimidated by the setup that you might see, but like it all started with like a cell phone, right? And a device that records. And at its core, a podcast is an audio only platform. And so just get an audio recorder or on your cell phone and record a conversation. What has contributed to you being a good interviewer and host?
I think I wasn't that good at it at the beginning. And I think the interviews were way too friendly in a sense that's like the interviews just kind of, it's just too friendly. It's like not much to gain as a viewer.
Okay.
So in that sense, I've tried to I do want to talk about, say if you laid off 7% of your workforce, like I want to talk about it. That's like the role that the CEO deals with. So we established that very early on with any relationship that we start is like, if we do this interview, we're going to talk about the hard things too. I'm going to do so in a way that's in good faith. And like, I want to
in good faith, but hard questions, right?
Yeah. And we literally just did that with one of the episodes, and they fired 7% of their workforce. And so we told them like, yeah, we're not skipping over that question. Like that's why the role is interesting, because they have to deal with that problem in the company. That's why not everyone's a CEO.
Yeah. You're not doing it to stir the pot. You're doing it because it's
interesting.
Yeah.
And so I tell them that, and they all understand. And so at the start, we were just happy to get guests, happy to film them. That's why I said to you earlier on, I wish I could refilm them.
Sure.
And maybe to your point, I want to refilm some of them.
Yeah. I was listening to an episode of Colin and Samir with Tim Ferriss, and both of whom are big YouTubers. And Colin and Samir got into podcasting, and as most of us do, from Tim Ferriss. And Tim Ferriss talked about his interview with Ed Catmull, I think CEO of Pixar. And
nice.
I think it was that one, but his first go at it, people on Twitter said, they left comments, and he was like, why? What is this?
Because he kept doing it.
He kept doing it. And then on his episode with Colin and Samir was like, I actually didn't notice that. And then Tim's like, I went back and took it all out. So you can redo things. You can have a second go at it.
Yeah.
It's all good.
You mentioned this earlier. You said, what makes a good interviewer? Like, what do you think? Why would I consider myself good at interviewing? One, I'm just trying to be myself as best I can. And I think the more I think about that, the more people will, if you're watching it, when you see someone that's trying to be like authentically themselves, I think that makes you like them more.
Right.
I think we're good BS detectors.
Yeah.
Specifically while watching videos, we see videos all the time. Like all of us do. Social media, Netflix, whatever you want to call it. We see people on TV a lot. And so if I'm producing a show where I'm on someone's screen, I just want to be real, and that's who I am. And if they gravitate towards it, great. If not, then maybe I should find something else to do. But like, I want to just be interested in the guests and the companies. Otherwise, I'm not probably going to be the best interviewer for that episode, because if I'm not interested in a cannabis company that's a publicly traded company, then why would I want to talk to them? And then therefore,
Curiosity.
Right. So in that sense, like, I just want to be myself. I want to prep for it. So I the conversation can flow in such a way that you're not like, there's not gaps. The questions are prepped in the sense that you know what you want to ask. I also have a beef with people. I think you do a good job at this. Like as an interviewer, like I think I have a beef with people within business focused content is they have like questions that they clearly want to ask and they're not even listening to the answer and they just go to the next question.
Rapid fire the next question.
Yeah. And I've been guilty of that. So I'm not like hating on it, but I think I've gotten better at that too. Is like, listen to the answer, have a conversation with them. You're a person.
100%. Yeah. It doesn't happen often these days, but you sometimes leave the conversation like, oh, I forgot to ask that, or I meant to ask that. But you have to give yourself grace and allow stuff like that to happen because you allowed yourself to go on a tangent with a certain direction. And, you know, this one conversation doesn't have to be the last conversation as well.
Right. I'm with that.
Are there any interviewers that you look up to or admire? So like personally, like Sean Evans, right? Sean Evans.
I was about to say.
You were going to say, like hot ones?
Yeah,
like,
I like hot ones. Because, okay, so I think, have you heard of David Rubenstein?
No.
He has a show. He's like a billionaire, so his show's pretty specific, but he gets like world leaders. He gets the top people.
Okay.
Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, former presidents. So he gets the top people. Okay. He's got a show on Bloomberg called The David Rubenstein Show.
Oh, okay.
I want my show to be that and Hot Ones mixed.
Nice. Yeah.
If they had a baby. Yeah. Because Hot Ones, when you watch Justin Timberlake on it, all of a sudden at the end of the episode, you're like, man, I like Justin Timberlake a little more. But that wasn't the goal of Hot Ones.
No, yeah.
He just did it because I think Sean Evans, one, is a good interviewer.
Yeah.
He stays calm. He lets them speak. He asks their question.
Right.
And then on top of that, through time, partly because they're eating super hot wings and they're becoming vulnerable as that goes on.
And they're not thinking about their answers.
Yeah, right. They're not thinking, and they're saying funny stuff. But at the end of it, they're being real and you're seeing a different side of them. And that's why you like them more, because now you're not seeing Justin Timberlake anymore. You're seeing a dude that you can relate to, or a person that you can relate to. So I would just say, like, I love his interview style and I love the format of the show. That's why in our series we do like the walk and talk, quote unquote. Otherwise, it's just a formal sit down interview, which is fine and that's great. But I want to move with the CEO. I want to see people walking with me so they can see their body language. They can get a feel for them. Like, that's important. So
how is that like to be like? Is that a one take type thing?
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like documentary style at that point. Like we're just filming. And we're taking...
Okay. So you're having a conversation. It happens to have someone filming.
Yes.
Right? Okay. Yeah, because that stuff, like when I try to make stuff like just me and a camera, I'm probably doing 10 takes. Like my intros for these episodes, like 10 takes.
When I do the intro for our show, it takes a few takes. Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's more produced parts of this show.
There are,
so
that's interesting. We're coming up on time. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you'd like to share, put out in the world, manifest?
Wow. I think this show is good quality right now. I think it's good quality. Our show. I think your podcast is good quality too, by the way.
Thank you.
But I think our show is good quality. And I think that business leaders specifically could use some humanizing.
Yeah.
And I do want to interview the top CEOs in the world. I want to travel around and do like an Anthony Bourdain for this show.
That's very cool. Yeah.
And that's the goal. And to anyone who's watched it, thanks, because that gets us closer to the goal.
100%. Yeah. Take a look, guys. It's very, very well polished. It's well produced. It's concise. It gets to the point. If you don't have the time, like I used to listen to podcasts on my commute because I would have a longer commute, and I don't anymore. I don't have a long commute, so I don't really have the time for podcasts. But, you know, the CEO series, 15, 16 minutes, and you get a good insight into someone who's, you know, otherwise unapproachable and inaccessible.
Yeah.
So kudos to you guys for putting out a great product and service, and we wish nothing but bountiful, you know, networking and more projects and more fun meeting interesting individuals.
Thank you.
But yeah, I appreciate the time. Where can people find you? All the platforms.
Yeah. So the CEO series, it's on YouTube. Just search the CEO series. It'll come right up. Would love for them to subscribe and check it out. And then Instagram CEO series, LinkedIn, the CEO series. And then that's where you'll find it.
Awesome.
Yeah, and then our company is Salvi Media.
Yeah, salvi.com.
SalviMedia.com. That's the company that produces it. Again, my brother's the CEO.
Okay.
And we're an agency. So, but that's it's the same. Obviously, we produce the show, but it's separate because we do want it to be. It's an interview series, so we want it to be separate.
Yeah, but if someone was looking for private like agency work, you guys are open to inquiries.
Absolutely.
As well. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we that's the main source of my life.
Very good. Yeah. All right, everyone. Till next time. Stay curious.
Yeah. Thank you so much.